we will survive. Drinking water, agriculture water, all domestic need. This water we need all around. What unfortunately, slowly, due to urbanization and industrialization, we are lot of encroachment has stopped, these channels coming out from mountain areas, high altitudes, and because of worries about how to protect water bodies, because water bodies basically are the sources of all kind of water, whether it is groundwater coming from percolation. And water bodies are important basically to hold our water for our needs throughout the year, because the source of water what we have primarily there are two sources. One coming from monsoon that happens only in May, June, July, and then other one is glacier melt. So that is also from that angle. This water of our need has to be stored in water bodies, and mostly the general we call it wetland, and these are not only our water other need, lot of what you call environment and biodiversity need also related to wetland conservation. There are so many organizations, so many individuals. We have inspiring doing water management. Government is also having a lot of plan for water management. We thought of celebrating this wetland day by having a panel discussion. We have invited a very eminent professors and young researchers for that, so that the unknown facts, some new research or some new challenges can be shared between our student. We have, new student, new batch has come, and MSc and MPhil. Those students are also probably in this gathering. So from with these words, I once again welcome all of you, and let me introduce our panelists. We have invited Professor C.K. Varshney, who is a renowned scientist. In a way, he is father of environmental sciences in India. School of Environmental Sciences, basically, he is one of the founders. He has been force behind all the environmental programs, whether it is research program or policy oriented for government. He is a governing council member of this South Asia Wetland Council. He is also emeritus scientist, emeritus professor in JNU. So many initiatives he has basically suggested, done also for India, even South Asia. Professor Varshney need not to say, he need not to say, he was dean also of the School of Environmental Sciences. He has done so many innovative work in our school that time. Later on, he was affiliated to different departments. So he thought of having his blessings, and also some new thing for the environmental mission of India. He will enlighten us. Then we have another eminent professor who has contributed a lot on water management, including JNU water management, Professor Saumitra Mukherjee. He is our colleague. He was also dean of School of Environmental Sciences. I thank Professor Mukherjee readily agree of this program, and today we will hear his efforts to have water body conservation dam making in JNU. He has been associated with the Central Groundwater Board also. And then as our objective of this webinar always has been to have different age group of scientists, professors, so that knowledge is percolated. People also they come to know each other. So senior, middle level, and very young, that kind of combination I select. So this year we have young researcher Priyadarshini Singh, who is doing work on wetlands. She is also basically from SES, but now she is working in Maitreyi College, Delhi University. We have in this, probably she has joined or not, but Komal Choudhary, she is a young holistic leader, and she was a part of this event. We have conducted that on, we have given a picture, and based on picture, with some sentences you have to write. So this exercise we have given, and she was conducting with our program of research RTC. So with this brief introduction, now I request Professor Varshney to, sir, please share your thoughts.
Thank you, Professor Umesh, for inviting me and distinguished panelists, as well as the members of the students, faculty, and ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I would like to congratulate Professor Umesh and the School of Environment Sciences for organizing this World Wetland Day 2021, which I think is a very important event and must be celebrated by all institutions which are engaged in learning and giving exposure to environmental issues which are becoming increasingly critical for various reasons. Now, first of all, we must understand and we must appreciate that why we celebrate Wetland Day. Just to give you a background of this day, which has been declared and celebrated world over. First of all, I feel very happy on this day that this is being celebrated. Not only that it tries to propagate the value and the importance of the wetland, but for a very personal reason that I have been involved with the wetland from ab initio, if I may say so, and if I am not making an overstatement. It was in the 1971 that I was working with the Government of India as Secretary to the National Committee on Environmental Coordination, which was the forerunner of the Ministry of Environmental Forest that we have. And this was the only body in the central government to advise on policy matters and all other matters related to environment. I had just joined the Government of India from Delhi University, and this was the first task before me, because we have received a letter from IUCN, the Government of India, that a meeting is going to be organized in Ramsar. And this is going to deal with wetland. Now, this word was absolutely new. We consulted many people and nobody knew what is a wetland at that time. Of course, people were aware of lakes and so on, but the term wetland was absolutely brand new, because this was a term which was introduced to really provide a generic feature for all water bodies, and this term was very new. Now the task before me was that what are these wetlands? Where are these assets available in the country? And how much importance the government let it go? And that was the task which was before me as a secretary. I was all alone. I had just joined the government and there was no other setup. And I looked into the literature that was available in Planning Commission Library, which is considered to be one of the best libraries that we have in the city. And there was hardly any information on this under the title wetland. So what I decided to do at that point of time to really look for people who have some knowledge about the birds, because it relates with birds and particularly migratory birds. And we zeroed on to Dr. Salim Ali and we requested him to come over to Delhi. And we gave him a briefing that here is a meeting which perhaps we would like you to represent the country. And on the basis of recommendation made by our committee, the government of India agreed to the proposal and Dr. Salim Ali was assigned the task to participate at this meeting in Iran, in a town which is known as Ramsar. It is situated at the south of the Caspian Sea, a very scenic and a very touristic place where this meeting was held. And it is at that meeting a draft was finalized. Can I have the first slide? Can you project the first or second slide, please, if possible? Can you ask somebody to project the slides?
Slide is there, sir. Which one? Before that, this one or this one?
No, the first one or second one, perhaps.
This one. This is the second.
This is the second.
Umesh sir, it's not visible.
It's not visible. It's not visible.
No?
No.
No. Then again I will put this. Again I will present.
Well, anyway, the text of a international convention was finalized at Ramsar.
Are you able to see now?
Yes, sir. Now it's visible.
Yes, sir.
So this one, sir, or first one?
Previous to this, yes. The Ramsar Convention was finalized. The text of the Ramsar Convention was finalized. Then the text, correct name of this Ramsar Convention is the Ramsar Convention on Wetlands of International Importance. Please mind every word very carefully. Of international importance is as waterfowl habitat. Now, waterfowl habitat means the birds which require water either live there or is essential to complete their life cycle. So it was because precipitous dropping of the populations of the migratory birds, which have their winter abode as well as their summer abode, which is separated by thousands of kilometers. And it is through the urge of migration, mass migration, which really makes them shuttle over such long distances to complete their reproductive cycle successfully. Now, it is because of this that as they pass through different countries without any passport or without any restriction, they fly free. And it is because of this that they are hunted as they pass through different countries, and their populations were dropping precipitously. And this was a major concern to those who had interest in birds. So now you can understand that why we selected Dr. Salim Ali to represent. And it is because of the precipitous drop in the populations of these migratory birds, which have an international, I should say, citizenry. They do not belong to any one country. What they require, and they have to transit over large number of countries during their life cycle. So I think it is this concern which many bird watchers who were very much interested in these birds raised the concern of conservation, and they decided with the IUCN to really have an international convention. Now this convention has conservation of which is multilateral and which is intergovernmental. Secondly, it is outside UN system of convention, as against the climate convention and so on. So it is a convention which has a full backing of United Nations, but it is outside. And I think, in short, it is known as Ramsar Convention. It was in 71, the text was, and now it is 2021. So it is the 50th year of finalizing this convention. Government of India joined this convention on 1st February 1982. And from 1997, the global community started celebrating World Environment Day. India would really take further action on this. It is important to us to know what
Some
are
background noise. Swati, mute.
wetlands are areas of marsh, fen, peatland, and any other water body, including the ocean edge. They may be permanent or temporary. They may be freshwater or saline or brackish. And the edge of the sea, which is not deeper than 6 meters at the low tide, which means the corals, mudflats, mangroves, they are all varieties of wetlands that we have. Now, in order to really know that where these wetlands are, my next task was to find out these assets. And there was no information. So what I did was that I conducted a All India survey for the first time in 1972. And it is only basis of this that we were able to convince the government of India to consider joining this convention and commit ourselves as a country to the objectives and to the desired outcome of this convention. Now you can see these wetlands are extremely beautiful habitat. In fact, they are ecosystems, to be more precise. So this is a convention which does not deal with any particular dimension, or particular aspects of the environment, but it deals with the ecosystem health. And this is it. On the mud as well as the substratum and the birds, the microorganism, and everything together. And one of the requirements is to really find out by the member countries, which are known as parties, of wetland within their country, which are of international importance from the point of view of migratory birds, and for other reasons which are persuasive in terms of their conservation. Today, India has 42 sites which the government has declared as wetland sites, and they are included in the network of sites maintained by the Bureau of the Ramsar Convention, headquarters in IUCN in Switzerland. While the international network consists of almost 4,800 wetlands, and their combined area is about 2.5 million square kilometers, which approximately equal to the total territorial land of Mexico. In India also, the combined area of these wetlands, which are of international importance, is about 1.08 million hectares. In addition to this, India has also identified 115 wetlands of national importance. The next slide. The World Wetland Day 2021. Every year, the Wetland Day has a special theme. And this year's theme is wetland and water. This is a very, very appropriate for our country, and at a time when we are suffering from acute problems of water management and water shortage. Niti Aayog has come out with its report in 2018, which provides some kind of a idea as to what kind of constraints and problems we are going to face with respect to water. Wetlands are part of the global water cycle, and they are the recharging sites for which we are exploiting in ever-increasing quantity. In fact, India is one of the largest exploiter of the groundwater, and globally, 24% of the groundwater is exploited by India, and we are in a negative balance. And that is the reason that our farmers have to keep digging their bore wells progressively deeper to extract water, which requires extra quantity of energy and also extra quantity of effort and capital expenditure, which increases their input cost and which really slices off their margin of profit. So I think the water is very, very critical. You may recall that some time back, Chennai has a serious problem of water. In fact, they have a constant fight with their neighboring states of Kerala and Karnataka and Andhra, Delhi and Haryana. I think on water, the states are at a loggerhead. The city, within the cities, mohallas and the neighbors are the loggerhead. In many places, drinking water supply during the summer is only weekly or sometimes even after 10 days. So I think the water becomes a very, very important issue. In India, we have spent almost 4 trillion rupees over management of water, only to realize that our water problem and water situation is worsening by the day. So I think the theme that we have this year for the wetland about water is very appropriate, and particularly it is more appropriate for our country when we have got impending climate change, and because of the warming atmosphere and warming climate, it becomes very important that we should maintain our wetlands. In India, as I said, these assets were assessed by me for the first time in 1972. Then again, the Ministry of Environment and Forest, which was formed by then, appointed me as a chairman of All India Wetland Survey. and we carried out a survey in 1984, which vastly improved the data sets, and they were the only data available which were official data for the wetlands in the country. Over and above, subsequently, a satellite survey by SEC was organized by Ministry of Environment and Forests, and for the SEC survey, I was one of the advisors to the SEC, that is Remote Sensing Agency at Ahmedabad, for preparing wetland atlas of the country. And on the basis of the satellite imagery, which was published in form of a wetland atlas of India, over 7 lakh wetlands are available. And most of these wetlands are suffering from all kinds of problems, including pollution, eutrophication, and as well as drainage, and so on. And as a consequence, these multi-resource and multi-service wetlands are in a peril, and everywhere they are being degraded, drained, and reclaimed for agriculture or for urban expansion. And that is a reason that we find that flood buffering is vastly reduced. And you find that India has recently suffered huge damage of life, property, livelihood because of the vast and highly devastating floods that we have experienced. Urban floods have become a common phenomenon. And all this had happened because most of the wetlands, which were receptacle for this extra water, at the same time were also source of the aquifer, have been drained and have been encouraged upon. In Delhi, there were about 600 wetlands, and now we hardly find very few. And sometimes some authorities claim that we have rescued this wetland, one or two, which is nothing in terms of the task that we have. Maintaining wetland is to save ourselves, is to free ourselves from the water insecurity, which is really descending upon us in a big way, both in a rural and urban setting, as well as food security, because all these things are very important. And more important is that the wildlife has the only source of water which is available in wetland. You do not have a water tap. Of course, now we have a program to provide piped water to every household, which is important. But at the same time, for the wildlife, we hardly have any source, and this is the only source available. So we have to really, if we want to sustain the wildlife, if we want to really maintain the aquatic biodiversity, which since 1970 has decimated almost 80%, which is very unfortunate. And now we find that the population of toads have come to a very, very small number and are brink of endangerment. At the same time, fisheries are suffering and many amphibious organisms as well as many other plants. I remember when I was young teacher at University of Delhi during 1964, Isoites as well as horsetail were freely available near which were in many. But today, they are just not seen. They are just not there. And I think many other species such as duckweeds, particularly lemna, is also not seen. So I think many of these plants which were common occurrence have become very rare and have disappeared. Water and wetlands go together. Water and human welfare go together. Water and human health go together. And wetlands are very important. So improve the water quality, they provide water, they give, and they help in dealing and buffering the climate change. At the same time, they also sustain amphibians for which there is no other place. And over and above, they are actually the site for our international migrants which come to our country from far off places of Siberia and Middle East, following rains, and stay with us until the winter. Water is critical for wetlands and water is critical for us. And I would like to stop here and again profusely thank Professor Umesh, School of Environment Science, and the distinguished faculty for taking this initiative and for propagating the value of wetland and furthering the objectives of Wetland Day, which is primarily to really propagate the value and the importance of wetland for human being and for the welfare and for sustenance and future well-being. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. A wonderful message. Water is important for life, human life, biodiversity, anything. Water is required for human goods. Thank you very much, sir. It was quite informative. Also, the background we are hearing from a genuine source. That is also a very important thing. And with this, I thank once again, sir. Now, I request another panelist, eminent scientist, Professor Saumitra Mukherjee from SES. Professor Mukherjee, please.
So, good afternoon. First of all, I pay my respect to Professor C.K. Varshney because during his deanship only in 1992, I joined this School of Environmental Science at Jawaharlal Nehru University after serving Central Groundwater Board, Ministry of Water Resources, and as a scientist in Remote Sensing Application Center, Uttar Pradesh. And I'm from Varanasi, Banaras Hindu University product. And I'm thankful to Professor Umesh Kulshrestha also for inviting me and sharing my some work of this on this wetland and this aquifer recharge in Jawaharlal Nehru University. So at the outset, I should say that the awareness of this wetland was well after 1970. That means, as Professor C.K. Varshney has already mentioned about the Ramsar Convention, as well as the initiation of the understanding of the importance of the wetland in the globally. But the thing is that the implementation of the program was started slightly late. And the thing is that not only the conservation of the wetlands as well as the water resources is important for the reducing the greenhouse gases, but it is important for our day-to-day activities. Actually, whatever the things which we see our surrounding us, and if we are capable of keeping it as it was, then only it will be a great service to the humanity as well as the other living and non-living things. So at the outset, I should say that the conservation of wetlands, if we are capable of doing, not only we are saving our precious water bodies, but we are capable of saving enormous number of species, which sometimes we may see, like migratory birds, but sometimes we may not see. Even the microbes, they also have a big role for the conservation of the earth. So, without repeating the things which Professor Varshney has already told, I would like to share with you some of our work in School of Environmental Sciences, Jawaharlal Nehru University, about the conservation of the wetlands as well as the creation of the wetlands. So in 1992, when I joined this university after serving two government organizations, then that time our vice chancellor was Professor Y.K. Alag. So and during that time also there was some problem, and always the problems are highlighted by the students. And that time the students highlighted the problem of availability of the water. That means drinking water in the tap, in their hostels, as well as the availability of the water in their labs, as well as in the houses of the faculty as well as staff. So Professor Y.K. Alag invited me in his office and he asked me that whether it is possible to do something about the university. He said that in this university you are going to stay for another, say, 30 years. So it was 1992. It was long ago. So is it possible to do something for this university? So then I said that yes, because I remembered some of our work of Central Groundwater Board as well as UP Remote Sensing Application Center. I worked in the water-starved area of Bundelkhand. So there is in between Hamirpur and Banda district, there is a place which is known as Maton. And that Maton is actually on the water divide. And incidentally, the Maton area was highly crime prone because the farmers, they could not get the water for irrigating their fields. As well as they have to fetch the water for far off place because the river is also not there within 1.5 kilometers, and groundwater was also not available down to 150 liters. So our director, Professor R.S. Chaturvedi of UP Remote Sensing Application Center, he gave two of us, myself and Dr. Bibu Sarin, who was a geophysicist. We visited that area and we found out that the geological formation is actually atypical in that area. It was whatever the rainwater is falling in that area, that is going in the form of surface runoff only. And very limited area was available for the recharge of the rainwater to form the groundwater. So we could identify by using Landsat satellite data. That time our indigenous satellite data was not available because the IRS-1A was launched slightly late in 1987, and we are the first group of scientists who has mapped the hydrogeomorphological atlas of India by using the IRS-1A data, and we mapped the 56 districts across the country which was considered to be grey area. So by mapping that area of the Maton area, we could identify some suitable locations for groundwater exploration. We, of course, the government gave the farmers high subsidy. At 60% subsidy was given, 40% was paid by the farmers. And they could get enormous amount of groundwater from the suitable location. And after, say, 15 years, then we came to know that the crime rate of Matons has came down. So the thing is that the importance of the water resource as well as wetland is not only for the conservation of the water, but it has a long-term consequences. So with this background, so then I started working in Jawaharlal Nehru University, and then that time chairman of the Indian Space Research Organization was Professor U.R. Rao. So he was aware of my work in the Department of Space because our work was sponsored by the ISRO only. So I asked him to give me one satellite data, spot satellite data. So he gave me the spot satellite data of 1989, because the older satellite data has all the information available of geological, pedological, as well as vegetation. So we could identify some of the suitable locations and selected 3 check dam locations in our campus. At the same time, but there was no money available in the university, as well as no fund was there. So and I was not having any student also that time. So practically I worked alone in the 5 square kilometer area of this campus for identification the suitable locations for rainwater harvesting, as well as I borrowed 2 instruments. One is resistivity meter, another was proton precision magnetometer. to develop a GIS map of the whole campus to identify suitable locations for drilling. So later it was after 3 rainwater cycle, some 45,000 liter of water was found to be going inside the ground to recharge the aquifers, and slowly the water level started coming up, and then our after this drilling, nine tubewells, the availability of water was more than sufficient for supplying in our houses as well as laboratory as well as in the schools. So even today also, these 5 of these tubewells are functioning, and whenever there is no supply of the groundwater of the water from the municipal corporation, the university is supplying this water by different means. So in this way, I would like to share with you a few slides. So already this. So this is the slide which is showing that high rate of depletion of groundwater level in hard rock area, which was slowed down in few areas of Delhi by rainwater harvesting. Here you can see that these are some of the areas: Tughlakabad, Hetorni, Lado Sarai, Humayun's Tomb. All these areas, the lowering down of the groundwater was very high in the South Delhi. So this is the hydrogeological study of Jawaharlal Nehru University. And here we have selected 3 check dams: C1, C2, and C3. This is C1, this was first selected, then C2, and this is C3. These 3 check dams were selected, and after the selection of this check dam, every year the water is getting recharged through these check dams. So during that time, the North India was under the great threat of lowering down of the water level as per the studies of Matthew Rodell. So he's a scientist in NASA. He said that the farmer subsidy should not be given for new construction of the tubewells. Then it was a big challenge for the planning commission also. Then I downloaded again the data, and I identified that there are sufficient small pockets which are available for drilling. At the same time, if you are doing the rainwater harvesting along with the drilling, then it will be possible for us to restore not only the available water resources, but it will be possible for our day-to-day meet also for the availability of the water. So this is our JNU check dam site, and see, this is the old picture. If you visit this area in Paschimabad area, you will not find this gate there, but this structure is available, and every year the rainwater is falling and it is getting collected in this area, and slowly it is recharging in the not only in this campus, but it is recharging the surrounding area also, because the subsurface that there is a interconnected fractures are there. So not only in the JNU area, but Basant Kunj, Munirka, and Basant Vihar area aquifers are also recharged by our work. And these are some of the drilled tubewells in this campus. And the first time we could drill down to 200 meters of the tubewells, and when the water came up in the form of with a high pressure, and this is the surface manifestation of the aquifer in JNU, and lateral recharge by the superficial aquifer. So this is the successful water resource management in JNU area, which is shown by the satellite images. In the satellite image, you will find that this is the area earlier before the rainwater harvesting, and slowly when the water was harvested, so in this area you will find that the normalized difference vegetation index was found out to be much higher. So even though there were some deforestation was there because we need some hostels, some schools, some new buildings. But even though slowly the water level has come up and it has improved the quality of the vegetation. So by improving the quality of the vegetation, not only it is possible for the creation of an area where the availability of the oxygen more, but it is actually a carbon sink. And in this way, it was possible for us to reduce the global warming to a very limited area. So when this work was propagated and it was published also, even in the Nature Journal also the work was published, then the Asia Pacific Network, they through United Nations, they approached us for a students training. And in 2016, we did a training for the students, and in that we have shown that how slowly the normalized difference vegetation index of the campus has improved. So this is the NDVI of the JNU campus before rainwater harvesting in 1989, and this is the part of the hands-on training to monitor the forest cover and deforestation using advanced remote sensing techniques under the UNCAR INET framework in support of RED MRV system in between 13 to 15 May 2016. The workshop venue was our School of Environmental Sciences, JNU. So slowly we'll find that this area is continuously changing, and the NDVI has shown that NDVI is actually reflected near infrared minus reflected red divided by reflected near infrared plus reflected red. So slowly the area has shown much improvement in normalized difference vegetation index, and the migratory bird which stopped coming in this university, they again started coming in this university. And if you in the winter months, if you visit the Paschimabad area where the rainwater harvesting site is there, you will find that if during the rainy period, lots of migratory birds are coming, and this is the condition which we witness, that slowly sometimes what happens, all of a sudden there is a rise in the temperature. So during that time also we can monitor whether the normalized difference vegetation index is improving or it is decreasing. So
thank you very much.
I would like to say that not only by using the conventional method, but by using the satellite data also, it was possible for us to change the lowering down of the groundwater level. And the lowering down of the groundwater level is a very dangerous thing for the soil moisture restoration. If the soil moisture is not restored, so then it will be difficult to preserve some of the valuable species of the Aravallis. So when slowly the water level came up, a number of species, valuable species, has slowly started coming up. And I worked along with one of our very distinguished Professor Brij Gopal, who left us in last 1 month ago. So he helped us to identify some suitable species which should be planted in suitable hydrogeomorphological units. So there is a new terminology which we coined eco-hydromorphogeology. That means based on the hydrogeomorphology, the ecological restoration should be done. So in a small scale it was done, and the same work was repeated in Indira Gandhi National Open University as well as Humayun's Tomb and other parts of Delhi. And a map was prepared for whole Delhi for the rainwater harvesting. But the thing is that locally we should also try to clean this wetlands. See, there are three wetlands in our campus. One is in the Paschimabad area, another is behind the central school, and another is behind the sports complex. So I have visited all these three wetlands of our university, but I found out that behind the central school there is a wetland is there, but it is actually having some eutrophication. So the thing is that time to time we should maintain our wetlands so that the restoration as well as the rainwater percolation will be there. At the same time, it will not produce any greenhouse gas, because wetlands are very important for the as a sink as well as a producer also. As we are all aware that the research is continuously going on in this area, that wetlands are not only useful as a sink, but it also can produce a greenhouse gas. So the conservation of the wetland is very, very important in the local scenario, that not only in India but throughout the world, the people should appreciate our efforts for the conservation of the wetland. Even in Delhi, we are the first to do this rainwater harvesting, and from the Chennai, the Leather Research Institute people, they also came to follow our work, and lots of people, they are following our work. And this is the high time that after this February month, this from March to April, in these 2 months, we should clean our available this rainwater harvesting sites, so that whatever each drop of the rainwater should go inside the earth to rejuvenate our groundwater level, so that our vegetation health will be improved. At the same time, the migratory birds will coming, and at the same time, the whole environment will be so pleasant that and how the environment will be pleasant, because the availability of the greenness, the availability of the flowers, the availability of the birds, and the whole environment will be rejuvenated. So with this few words,
thank you. Thank you very much, Professor Mukherjee.
Share this idea. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. It is very important to know our nearby water bodies, and then work for water management, because water is our lifeline. Thank you, Professor Mukherjee. Your experience will enrich our students, definitely as part of a dissertation or some project. They will again revisit that, and probably they will do something required which you have suggested. Thank you, Professor Mukherjee. Now we have a young researcher, Priyadarshini Singh. She is also a wetland person. We have to hear about what she has basically in for challenges for future, for our generation, for water management and wetland management. Priyadarshini, please.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. I'm really grateful to Professor Kulshrestha and Professor Mukherjee for giving me the chance to share some of my thoughts today regarding wetland conservation. And I would like to share my presentation first. Is the screen visible?
Yes.
Okay, so this particular topic is quite important for me because this is where I started my research from. It's for my master's dissertation. So some of the importance of wetland has already been shared with all of you here today. Some of the functional aspects are what are very important as far as water storage is concerned, or groundwater recharge, and basically for flood prevention, also water purification. These are some of the functional aspects of most of these wetland ecosystems. And several other values as well as attributes are there as far as habitat is concerned for many of the avian fauna which is seen. So we all know that 42 sites within India have been designated as the Ramsar site, but there are a lot many smaller wetlands which are present in the urban and peri-urban areas, particularly in semi-arid regions. If we talk about, they are quite threatened in today's time. So within the semi-arid regions, there is extremely low precipitation, and primarily due to the climatic changes which are being observed, there is a huge stress on these wetland ecosystems. So that is why these have become much more fragile and vulnerable towards the climate change scenarios which we are experiencing. So within the urban and peri-urban wetlands, some of the examples which we have within Delhi NCR, we have the Neela Halls Lake, which is quite close to JNU, next to Sanjay Van. We also have the Okla Bird Sanctuary, which is towards Noida when we across the Yamuna Barrage. And Sultanpool National Park is one of the wetlands where I worked for my master's thesis. And they all have certain very important functional as well as cultural values we talk about. So most of these examples which I have shared here, they have all been experiencing some sort of threat, either because of siltation, because of encroachment, there is sewage or waste disposal which is happening in all of these different wetland ecosystems. So along with that, we see that hydrological alteration in terms of these encroachments which have happened in the past few decades, that's the reason why these wetlands are vanishing from the urban and peri-urban scenario. So here I have shared a couple of pictures. The upper picture is of Neela Horse Lake. This is the revived lake which we looked at, and below we have the Okla bird.
Sorry to disturb, ma'am. Can you again share your slide?
Oh, it's not.
Can you share your slides again? Yes, it's not visible.
Is it visible now?
You have to press F5, then it will be visible completely.
Maybe so because of the. Is this like visible?
No, it's visible, but size is small. You have to increase the size.
Oh.
Full screen.
Oh. Yeah, it is okay.
Thank you.
Visible now?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Fine.
So all of these are some of the threats to these urban and peri-urban wetland ecosystems. And in this slide, we see the upper part is your Neela Horse Lake. This is a revived picture of the lake. And below here, we have the Okla Bird Sanctuary. And both of these are suitable habitats for avian fauna. And here for the Okla Sanctuary also, another colleague of mine worked on this particular site. Here we have a large amount of built-up activity which is happening close to this wetland area. So there are continuous threats to this particular wetland ecosystem. And moving on to the actual site where I worked on for my master's dissertation. Is the slide visible now?
Yeah.
Okay. So let me just go to this particular mode. I think there's some problem with that. Okay, so this is a picture of Sultanpool National Park, and it has a small lake in between, which is approximately 2 to 3 kilometers square in the area. And this particular work went on for a year as to the monitoring was done continuously. And here is a map. It is within the Gurgaon district, approximately 50 kilometers away from Delhi. And a few sampling work was done for the surface water sampling as well as for the groundwater sampling from the nearby areas. So the samples were analyzed for various hydrochemical parameters to see as to whether or not there are certain kind of pollutants which are entering into this particular lake, which is in between the national park. And this lake is very well known mainly for the people of Delhi NCR, because this is a tourist spot as well. Mainly bird watchers commonly come to this area to research on various bird avian. Several migratory species of birds are there. So this particular lake has been drying over the past several years, and the reason why this has happened is generally because of encroachment of land. There is a huge amount of agricultural activity which is also going on in the surrounding area. So the Siberian crane and the Sarus crane, these are the varieties of birds which are visitors. And in the past few years, their population has declined primarily because of the lowering in the water quality as well as the water level in this particular lake. So here, this is a Google map image of what the lake looks like. A large amount of the lake is also undergoing eutrophication, as we can see from the picture. And in order to revive the lake, there was desiltation and whitening of the lake bed, which has been going on for several years as part of the restorative measures. And because low rainfall, average rainfall over the year, the recharge of the lake has also been undergoing through pumping groundwater. So groundwater is anyway scarce in this region, and in order to revive the depth of the lake, there is a large amount of groundwater pumps which are putting water into this particular lake. So my study was basically to identify as to what are the anthropogenic disturbances. So here we have a map. I used remote sensing technique in order to identify what is the drainage basin of this area. So from where the water is actually draining into this particular lake. And this yellow part is what the drainage basin looks like. So land use, land cover change was also mapped to see what are the anthropogenic activities which could be causing decrease in the depth of the lake, as well as the water quality, the deterioration in the water quality. So there are several classes of land use which were basically classified in this drainage basin, and large amount of agricultural activity has been observed both in 2000 and 2015. A huge amount of fallow land is also there, which is basically responsible for siltation of this particular lake. And here we have this small lake, which is the Sultanpool National Park lake. So next, in order to identify as to how changes have happened, here I'm sharing what is the effective surface area of the lake. And here also we use remote sensing tools to see how from 1995 to 2015, we see a continuous decline in the effective lake surface area. So the blue pixels which are seen here, they are the water pixels and the non-water pixels. So the binarization of data was done to identify what is actually the condition in spite of restorative measures. As I told you, desiltation of groundwater, still we see that there is a declining trend. So here we have a graph from 1995 to 2015. Although there are certain periods in between where the lake surface area increased, maybe because of increased amount of rainfall. But the general trend which was seen was that the lake surface area has been declining over the several past few years. So this was further on. If we look at the chemical composition of the water, the surface water had high amount of nitrates and phosphates, which indicated that there is surface runoff, agricultural runoff, which is basically polluting the water body, and that is also resulting in algal blooms, which we see every year in scattered pockets within the lake area. So this particular study was just to understand as to whether or not these restorative measures of desiltation as well as deepening of the lake and pumping groundwater, are they sufficient enough to ensure that the lake is being maintained. So according to whatever we saw and the research which I carried out, these restorative measures were not sustainable, and there is continuous deterioration in the wetland area which we have seen. This is an example of a peri-urban wetland. Here also there is a small part of the Neela Horse case study which I would like to share, where actually new innovative measures were put into place to clean up the lake area. So here initially also I showed you this picture that the lake is now clean, but there was a high invasive species of water hyacinths which were growing. There was siltation because of the overbridge. Here in the picture we can see the overbridge construction was causing a high amount of siltation in this area. But a new method of constructed wetland restoration was done in the area, and Professor C.R. Babu was the one who actually carried out this restoration, and mainly physical and biological processes. So here we have these physical processes where the water is continuously filtered out by using pebbles and gravel, and in the end there are certain particular species of plants which are also planted in this area to take out the excessive amounts of nitrates and phosphates. So lemona is one of the species of plants which was used in this particular restoration in order to remove the excessive nutrients and reduce the algal bloom. So such kind of physical and biological processes are quite sustainable because you are actually not using any chemicals, artificial chemicals to purify the lake, and till now it has been seen that this is quite sustainable in restoring the lake. So here we can see that this particular Horsecast Lake, which is also close to JNU, here also there is a huge amount of algal blooms which has made the water completely green. The past couple of years, there are floating wetlands which are being put in this particular lake, and they are made by sustainable materials, and this will take a large amount of time also, maybe a year or 2 years, for the whole lake to actually be purified and all the excessive nutrients to be removed from the lake. This is a relatively newer, innovative method of cleaning up of such kind of putrefied wetland ecosystems. So floating wetlands are also promising innovative measures which have been used in the past few years in this Horsecast Lake, and currently we are still waiting for the results. And lastly, I would just like to share that all of these restorative measures and conservation measures should be put in place after all the causal factors have been identified as to which are the factors which are actually leading to the wetland degradation. And only after we have understood all of those causal factors, then the restorative measures should be put into place. Because if such measures are not properly thought about, then certain kind of natural wetland ecosystem, they would lose their ability to maybe restore themselves over a period of time. Also, regulation in terms of various land use activities such as agriculture or built up encroachment should be put into place. There should be effective wetland conservation and management laws. The Ramsar sites, they are conserved properly because they are internationally known, and their importance is also internationally known. They are larger in size, but these smaller peri-urban and urban wetlands, such as what we see in Delhi, are not quite known, and their area is small enough so that they are not considered as important areas for carrying out conservation and restoration processes. But for the urban community, for urban, Professor Mukherjee said that because of rainwater recharge as well as groundwater recharge, all of these are very important sites for carrying out groundwater recharge. So they also need to be restored, conserved properly, and there should be new and innovative measures which should come up, just like we talked about the constructed wetland system of restoration. These particular sites should be continuously restored in such kind of sustainable measures which can ensure that we have these proper wetland ecosystems with us for a much longer period of time, and also they are cost effective. They do not come at a burden, economic burden to the national income. So we would like to stress on these peri-urban and urban wetland ecosystems because they are very important, especially for the mega cities such as what we have in Delhi and NCR. So this is all I would like to share for today. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you very much, Priyadarshini. It was wonderful work you have done. I congratulate you. I have not seen, but it is very good that you have done a lot of work on local water bodies, Sultanpool and other things that are wonderful. Thank you very much. And now I request, as this is partly jointly organized by ENVIS, SES, and our YoHo group. Young holistic leader is Komal Choudhary for this. So we have organized some event. She will tell about that, her experience, and also a message for others who have recently joined our school. Komal is MSc first year student, just entered, and she is very dynamic, I noticed. So this program, with the help of Swati Singh, program officer ENVIS, she has managed. Now I request Komal to say a few words. Komal?
Yes, sir.
Yes, please, go ahead.
Yes. First of all, good afternoon to all present, and a special thanks to Professor Varshney, sir, Professor Saumitra Mukherjee, and Priyadarshini ma'am, and also to Professor Kulshrestha, who gave me this special opportunity to develop leadership quality. And I feel this has been one of the best decisions that I have taken as a part of JNU. And also it is under the guidance of Ma'am Swati, who helped me and guided me throughout. So I would like to thank her as well. And in all, the ceremony was of great success, I believe. It gave me advantage of the opportunity to undertake actions aimed at raising public awareness of wetland values and benefits in general. The need for more linkage and interaction between the human rights and environmental communities has been stressed repeatedly. So I fully support all the efforts to have more joined up thinking between the two communities. It has empowered us with a deep knowledge of current issues, like as Varshney sir told us about the Ramsar, who is doing a lot to protect and spreading awareness about the wetlands, as wetlands are the source of fresh water. And also, as per this year's World Wetlands Day theme, that is wetlands and water, which emphasizes the importance of wetlands as a source of fresh water and also encourages action to restore them and stop their losses. So it's all about that. And now, talking about my experience, it has been a very exciting experience that helps us to widen our views on international affairs. But at the same time, I would like to say that we promise to implement the learned objects in our practice, because there are miles to go before I sleep. So thank you to everyone. It's all about what I experienced in all this. And being a YoHo leader, it is also such a great experience. So I would like to say to all to be a part of this event as well, this kind of event. So thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Kamal. Wonderful. And you go to for me. Before I request Swati for a vote of thanks, I would like to summarize it that all the panelists basically they agree that they need to have wetland conservation because it's related to our lifeline. We have several policies, new research based on that. We have to take action. So with these words, I thank you all panelists, all the participants, and now I request. In fact, I tell you, in wetland not only is there for normal water needs, it is also required to conserve these to make big wetlands, basically water bodies, because it helps to control air pollution, especially the dust air pollution. That is having large source, dust is coming from different parts, suspended. So we require a source like rain and wetlands like Usman Sagar, MI side at that time, capacity wetlands. They can give occasional rains, and those rains can scavenge particulate matter, and that we have basically suggested. The Delhi air pollution is coming from soil dust, construction dust. So from that angle, we can control by having large water bodies other than biodiversity and greenery and other water recharging values. Thank you very much. Swati, please.
Thank you, sir, for providing me this opportunity. First of all, I would like to announce result of our last. Yesterday, we conducted a competition. So, may I request my colleague Sandhya to show the slide, result slide. Yesterday, we conducted a competition on wetland where we shared a picture and then asked the contestant to write a few lines about describing that picture and giving a caption. So it was participated by more than around 26 participants had successfully attended that event. And I'm very happy to say that all the young students who joined us recently as a first year batch in MSc or MPhil have taken up this activity very seriously. And and it was open for all, not only JNU students, but